Supporting the LGBTQ plus community in 2021 is educating yourself.
To actually support the community means to be willing to stand up for people who might not be comfortable standing up for themselves.
We need to address the intersectionality of the queer community. The complications of people's identities are lost in a way that's really dismissive and unfair. I know that a lot of schools have safe spaces or affinity groups for LGBTQ plus students. I think that we really need a bridge between these safe spaces and the entire school, because the entire school is not getting the message that these affinity groups or these safe spaces are getting.
There's a lot of violence against queer people that's mostly stemmed in racism.
It's also very important to understand the unique experience of POC people in the LGBTQ plus community. And I feel like they're very, very often disregarded, and very often what people envision when they think of the LGBTQ plus community is a group of white people.
Mental health is definitely an issue for LGBTQ people.
High rates of suicide among people in the community, especially teenagers.
Trans rights. I think that it happens because a lot of people don't understand what being trans is, or they just don't want to understand, and because of that they have an outright disdain for it, which I think is a real failure on society's part, because you shouldn't have to personally relate to something to know that that person deserves rights and deserves care and deserves health benefits and deserves to be who they want to be.
The AntiTrans legislation that we've seen over the past few years is despicable. It is utterly disgusting that we live in a country that makes trans people feel like their identity is somehow criminal.
It's all about telling trans people that they aren't valid starting at a young age.
There's so much denying of the correct information and the scientific information.
I came out years ago, so I've found that I've really tried to just speak up in these situations, because if I'm upset about what you said, I'm gonna bring it up.
As a white queer person, talking less, I think that's something we can all do.
I couldn't think of anything I do, which means maybe I need to do more. The idea of trans people or non-binary people is probably so foreign to cis adults. I think adults, what they need is to empathize a little more.
I'm queer in a straight relationship, and I think a lot of people and adults assume that that makes me straight now, which isn't really how that works at all.
One thing people have been doing a lot is putting their pronouns in their Instagram bios. And I think that's actually so helpful, even though it's a really small gesture. Little things like that can make people feel more comfortable and more safe in a space.
Being open to talking to the youth so that they don't feel like they have to figure it out all on their own.
I think that I can definitely talk to my parents about LGBTQ plus rights a lot of the times. I think that sometimes though it can make me really anxious to do that, just because I can get really stubborn about my arguments, and I think that holding them up for criticism just doesn't work for me with my parents.
My parents would be very open to have any kind of discussion and would actively participate in the discussion. I think that, and I'm very happy for that. But of course, that's not the experience for everyone, and I think it's important to recognize that that's not the experience for everyone.
With your peers, these conversations just will typically go better because your peers are who you choose. You choose to know who you're around. I choose to surround myself with people I know who aren't going to give me a hard time.
The way that I support and protect LGBTQ plus people, I kind of just treat people how they want to be treated, and I accept people.